All right, students, welcome to another live stream for our virtually proctored practice test today. When you guys get in, just like we always ask of you, can you guys say hello in the chat, give us a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, you probably don't see the chat right now, so if you can subscribe by clicking below, if you haven't already, then you should see, and then refresh the page, should see a live chat show up in the upper right-hand corner of your screen. I am Chase. If you haven't been with us before, I typically lead us through these virtual proctorings, and we'll do a little warm-up before we get started here and talk a little bit about the test and then get you guys ready to go. Guys, if you are taking the practice test with us this morning, please make sure that we're going to focus primarily. I should say that if you're not taking the practice test really is more important. If you're not taking the fully proctored practice test with us this morning, please just hang tight. I'm happy to answer any of your questions in the hour or so after we get everybody started with the practice test. But in the meantime, please just make sure that you guys hold on to your questions. For those that are taking the practice test with us, can everybody give me 2 thumbs up once you hear this message? 2 thumbs up that you guys have your test form printed out. If you're in one of our classroom programs, you should see that in the classroom group. You should see your test form along with the bubble sheet. So please make sure that you guys have that. If you're not in one of our classroom programs but still taking the test today, I think that you'll have access. You should have access to the practice test from a high school administrator. And if you are looking for a practice test, if you look at the video description below this video, right, you guys can see that all of just scroll down a little bit. You'll see all of the SAT and ACT officially released exams. Those are all free. They're on our website, so I encourage you guys to check those out and look through those. Guys, we can see how many students are watching for the most part right now. So if you are watching, but you, for whatever reason, don't have access to the live chat, sometimes that happens if you're on a student account. Can you guys just give me a thumbs up on the video beneath the video? I'm kind of trying to keep track of how many students we have watching and participating today. With the number of people that are commenting in the chat. So if you're not able to comment in the chat or you just don't want to comment for one reason or another, don't want to be seen, can you guys just give me a thumbs up on the video below just so I know that everybody's paying attention and understands the instructions even if you guys aren't all posting in the chat. Okay? That would be great. Thanks, guys. Okay? Great, guys. Looks like... Yeah, guys, if you have extra time, we're going to get to that, so don't worry. If you have extra time on this exam, don't worry. We're going to get to that. Just hang tight. I'll explain how that's going to work in just a second. But yeah, we'll get started here in just a second, guys. Okay? Looks like everybody has access to their materials. That's awesome. That's great news. All right, guys, so the first thing that we always go through in these live streams for the practice test is explaining how important it is to set a goal for yourself that's very material. Okay, so we talk a lot about this in our classroom programs. Setting a goal for yourself that's material means that it's setting a goal in a way that you've set a goal in school before. When you think about these exams, one of the things we see from students so constantly, and we've had over 1,000 programs, I've worked with over 1,000 students in our programs over the last 6 or 7 years, and it's like clockwork in terms of how students think about this test now, but how we want them to think about it going forward. So what I'm going to do is in the background of my screen here, you guys are going to see a scoring sheet. For a real, I'm going to use the SAT exam. Sometimes I use the ACT, sometimes I use the SAT. But the ACT scoring is the exact same, okay? So when I pull this up in the background of my screen, just listen to this part, okay? Just as you go through this. Well, as I pull this up in the background of my screen for the SAT, the same components of this apply to the ACT as well. And we'll probably jump into that a little bit. But what I want you guys to see, and I know this seems so ridiculous to think about it in this way because it's like an obvious thing, right? But when you think about the SAT, everybody always thinks about the score, right? How am I going to get a 1,300? Or how am I going to get a 27 on the ACT, right? Everybody's always thinking about the score, but think back. When was the last time you were scored on a 36 scale or a 1,600 scale ever before this in your life? It's never happened. And not only has it never happened, but I can't think of another situation unless you take graduate school classes, right? You have to take another test. I can't think of another situation where you'll be graded on this same scale. So what I want you guys to think about as you take these exams and as you prepare for these exams is not about how do I get this score, it's how do I get this number of questions correct. Because in school, that's how we think of it, right? If I get 50 out of 50 on my final, I'm going to get 100%, I'm going to get an A plus on the final and probably an A in the class. That's not how the SAT and the ACT works. It's much, much more beneficial to you than a school test, right? Because what I want to show you guys is, let's take the math on the SAT, right? And the ACT is out of 60 questions, the ACT math section. The SAT math section, you'll see this in the background of my screen here, is out of 58 questions. Okay, so 58, and the ACT is out of 60, so a similar component applies to this. Guys, if we get 58 out of 58, right? 58 out of 58 in school, that's equal to 100%, and that's equal to an 800 score here on the SAT. So that's really the only time that the scale is perfectly balanced. What I want you guys to see is that if you get 51 questions right? 51 questions, which is now a 700, what I want you guys to be very well aware of is that a 51 out of 58, right? 51 out of 58, in school, that's equal to like what? Like an 80, 87% maybe, somewhere around like a B to a B plus, right? Equals B plus to a B, somewhere in that range. On the SAT, if you get 51 questions right, a 700, right, is equal to the top, it's equal to like a 95%, okay? Or even maybe a little bit higher. So you're like in the 95, 95th to 96th percentile for the SAT math section, okay? And the reason I bring this up is because when you're taking this test, you have to think about this like a school test. Don't think about it like, I got to get a 700. How do I do that? Well, I'll tell you how to do it. You get 51 questions right on the math section of the SAT, and you're going to be in the 95th to 96th percentile. And the reason I bring all this up, guys, is that you'll see at every single level of the SAT, if you were to do this, like if you were to do the math like a school test, right? If I got 51 out of 58 on my math final, I'd get a B or B plus on that math final. On the SAT, you get a 95 or 96%. So the point is that you get a huge scoring bump, almost 10%. You almost get a 10% scoring bump if you did the calculations like a math final versus how you do it on the SAT at every single level of the test. It's not just at a 700, it's at a 600 as well. It's even more advantageous at a 600, right? If I get 40 out of 58 questions right, that's going to be, that's lower than a 70%. This is like a 68% on the test, right? Which in school feels like a D plus. On this test, 40 out of 58, 600 is in the top 20%. Let's call it top 25%. I'm not sure of the exact number here. But that means that if you're in the top 25%, right, you get let's call it as somewhere between 75 and 80%, right? And again, just like we just talked about at the 700 level, at a 600 level, what feels like a 68%, a D plus, actually gets you a 10-point bump, right? And that's where you have to think about it. That just by starting the test, this is a true statement, right, guys? Look at this. There's always this old joke that if you just put your name down on the SAT, right, on the SAT, you get 200 points, and that's true. And that's what I'm trying to get at, is that if you really look at these exams, you get a major scoring bump at every single level of the test. So don't think about it in terms of how do I get a 700. Think about it in terms of how do I get a 51 out of 58? Because if you thought about that in school, you'd be like, how do I get a B, right, a B on my final? In this test, if you think about it that way, you get an A on the final just because you just get that natural scoring bump. Does that make sense? Can everybody give me a thumbs up if that makes sense? The same rule applies on so again, 51, a 700, let's call it, again, top 4 to 5%, top 4% to 5%, right, on the overall test. The same thing, I'll jump over the ACT here for a second, okay? The same thing applies on the ACT. If we look at an ACT scoring scale, right, instead of out of 58 questions, the ACT is out of 60 questions. Let me pull up an ACT scoring report for you guys. Okay. Guys, look, if you pull up an ACT score report, the same thing applies. Okay, I'm looking at an ACT score. This is test 2 math, right? This is the 74F test form. Okay, there's 60 total questions. Let's say you want to get a 30, right? A 30 on the ACT, a 700 on the SAT math sections, right? That's typically thought of as really strong, and it is. It's really, it's in the top 4 or 5% of all students. Guys, if you take the ACT and you want to get a 30, you can miss 40, you can miss 11 questions, right? Or better yet, you can skip 11 questions. If you focus today on getting 49 questions right and don't think about it as a 60 question test, 49 out of 60 in school is like an 81%. That would be a B minus, right? But on the ACT math section, which is a really hard section, all of a sudden you're in the 95th to 96th percentile. The ACT and the SAT just give you points if you're willing to focus on accuracy. So your goal today should not be to go in being like, oh, I got to get a 60 out of 60 on the ACT math section, because that's how we think about it in school. In this test, it's not even, the ACT math for all recently released tests is not even out of 60. It's out of 59. You can miss one question on all recent ACT math sections. You can miss one question and still get a perfect score on the ACT math test on everyone in the last 3 years. So going in thinking that it's even a 60 question test doesn't make any sense. It's a 59 question test, meaning even at the highest possible level of testing, you can still miss one question and still get a perfect score. Nobody ever asks students, well, how many questions did you get right? Right? When was the last time, if you were asked about your testing score, nobody's ever like, oh, well, you got a 36, but you missed one. Right? Nobody ever says that. Everybody's like, oh my God, that's unbelievable. If you get a 30, nobody's ever like, well, yeah, but you missed 11 questions. No, everybody's like, you got a 30 on the ACT math section, that's awesome. You got a 700 on the SAT math section, that's incredible. Nobody's ever like, well, how many questions did you get right? Right? But if you think about it that way, if you can apply that, then all of a sudden, you know something that nobody else does. This is the biggest advantage that you guys can have, is approaching this test in the same way that you approach a school test, so it's actually material. It's not, I got to get this score. It's, I have to answer this many questions correctly on this section of the test. Because I've really studied the scales. I really know where I am on my practice test and what I need to do to get 49 questions right. And if you do that, you can skip 11 questions on the ACT math section today and still get a 30. Just the 11 hardest questions that you don't want to do, you can just be like, nope, not doing those today. I'll focus instead on the other 49 that I do know how to do, or the other 40. And guess what? Because it's a multiple choice test, guys, you get another big advantage because you can guess. There's still a chance that you get the questions right that you guess on at the end of the test. If you get 49 right, and then you have 11 left to guess on, and you guess the same letter on those 11, you're going to get statistically at least 3 of those 11 questions right. That means that you get 3 right, so now you're at 40. Now you're at 52. You actually get a 31 on the math test if you are focused on 100% accuracy on the questions that you do know. That is the most important thing you guys can do today, is focus 100% accuracy on all of the questions you know how to do. And if you don't know how to do a question and you realize that quickly, move on, right? Don't worry about that one question if it's gonna mean that you have to sacrifice, right? That you have to be overwhelmed by and then thus miss questions that you do know how to do. Right? Skip that one question. Every single question, the easiest question on the test and the hardest question on the test, are worth the exact same value. There's not one that's worth more than another. You don't get extra bonus points for challenging yourself on a hard question. So don't do that. Go into the math section today. If you're trying to get a 30 and that's a realistic goal score for you, right? Don't get a 25 on the math test 5 times in a row and all of a sudden think it's going to jump 5 points today unless you've done a significant amount of work in between. But if you have done that and a 30 is a realistic goal score, a 25 is your goal score for today on the math, set your expectations, right? See if you can accurately answer around 49 questions correctly. And then you can skip the rest. If 25 is your goal, that means you can skip at 25, you can skip around 20 to 25 questions, and you'd still end up with a 25 on the ACT math section. 20 to 25 questions that are super hard, you just don't have to worry about. The same thing is true of the SAT, as we just pointed out as well. Okay, does that all make sense? Can everybody say good to go if that idea makes sense? It is truly, truly the single, like in our classroom programs, we spend an hour of the first class talking just about the scale, the SAT and the ACT scale, if you're in one of our SAT or ACT classroom programs. And it's a 20-hour lesson. We have 20 hours worth of lessons in our classes. Okay, yet I think that the first hour talking about the scales is the single most important hour that we discuss. That first hour is as important as the next 19 hours of talking about each section combined. So 1 to 19, because of how this test is graded and how much confidence and how much stress you can reduce if you really understand this idea. And that is just critical, guys. Critical, critical, critical. Okay? So keep that up, guys. Keep that mentality going. Okay? So the second thing that we want to do, it sounds like everybody's good to go. They understand this, right? So hopefully that amped you guys up a little bit to say, today, I'm not going to just focus on getting a score. I'm focused on answering more questions correctly, more questions accurately, so that I go into the test and I know what my goal is. I know what I need to do today to get this score. It's to answer this many questions correctly, and then the score will take care of itself. That's the whole point of that message, right? You guys got to make sure that you keep that in mind as you go through the test, because there will be stressful moments, there will be anxiety throughout the test. That's where you have to overcome that, knowing that this one question, the frustrating question that you're on, is not more important than the next 5 that are going to be easier. Move on from that question. Keep moving. Keep that momentum going. Movement on this test, continuing to push forward, continuing to move forward, is the single most important thing you guys can do as you take this exam. Okay, so that's number 1, right? That's rule number 1 here. The second thing that I want everybody to do that I am adamant about is at least for our classroom students, is making sure that you guys are warmed up before you start the test. So for the next 10 minutes or so, I'd like everybody to get into their StarU app. If you guys don't have a StarU account yet, let me just type that in here. So download StarU, App Store, Play, Okay, I'm adamant about you guys warming up solely because we warm up for everything else we do in our lives, right? We warm up for sports, we warm up if you're in the musical or the play. Yet this test is so much more important realistically than any one single sporting event, right? Yet students don't warm up for it. Don't do a few easy practice problems to get ready for this. Imagine how much easier it is to stay focused, right? When you've already done 4 or 5 practice problems, 10 to 15 practice problems, whatever the number is, before you start the exam. So again, I'd like everybody to please log into your StarU student account. If you don't have one yet, if you don't have a StarU student account yet, you can get one. It takes like 2 seconds to sign up and download, so please do that. I'll pull up mine in the back of my screen. Is that cool, guys? Can everybody give me a thumbs up if that makes sense? All right, guys, let me see. Okay, so everybody should be logging in here. Log into your StarU student account, and then for the next 10 minutes or so, as soon as I can get my, what's going on here? As soon as I can get my password, we will take a look. Okay, but everybody should be doing this work on their own right now. Great, guys. Perfect. Everybody's logged in. Okay, so if you haven't done that, guys, give me 1 sec here. Guys, okay? Everybody should be doing a few practice questions for the next, let's call it 5 minutes, right? Hopefully I can get in here. I don't know what's going on here. Oh, I know I can. I'm an idiot. There we go. All right, guys. So this is what you guys should all see on the background of your own screens. Okay? If you guys click ACT and SAT practice lessons, the beauty of this thing is, right, if you're taking the ACT or the SAT today, when you take the real test, okay, you can click on the home screen, just click ACT and SAT practice lessons, then ACT, right, if you're taking the ACT today, click ACT English. You can be doing this on your phone. So when you guys get to the real test, the reason I'm trying to simulate this as much as I am today is because when you guys get to the real test, I want you to be doing this while you're standing in line. Rather than talking to your friends, getting really overwhelmed, right? All I want you to be doing is do some simple pronouns work, right? Click pronouns. Again, all you have to do is you log in on the home screen, right? Just click ACT and SAT practice lessons. Okay, if you do that, you guys can click SAT as well right at the top. Okay, you can click SAT, and then you do SAT reading questions. Right, whatever it may be, you guys just want to be warming up. You want to be getting in the right mindset so that you're not feeling too overwhelmed as you guys go through this, right? You guys can do some practice problems as you work through it, hopefully. Right, if you're taking the SAT today, you can do some SAT reading. Okay, just scroll at the top, click strategies, right? Maybe you start doing some reading strategies. Maybe you do some evidence-based questions. But the idea, guys, is again, when you're standing in line while everybody else is getting flustered and getting worried and getting overwhelmed, you guys are doing practice problems to get warmed up. So when you click ACT English, this isn't the first, when you start the test, this isn't the first time you've seen the exam, right? You've done practice problems. All of these practice problems, punctuation is a really important one. For those that are in our program, you guys know that punctuation is extremely important for the ACT English section. Okay, so if you guys log in and you start doing some practice problems, you guys are going to find that the test, when you start it, there's a lot less anxiety to it. Okay, there's a lot less anxiety to it, and that's extremely important. Okay, so again, click punctuation, right? Then click tap, right? You click the button at the bottom that says tap to start, and now you can do 5 punctuation questions. And then when you get to the real thing, all of a sudden you're actually thinking about ACT English rather than thinking about how, right, letting your friend who's standing in line with you convince you that you're not going to do well, right? Who's been in that position before? Oh my God, I'm going to do so badly. Why is it so early? It's Saturday morning, right? It wasn't that long ago that I was in high school. I know how this tends to go, right? And that's where I want you guys to be really, really thoughtful about what's going to make you the best test taker on that test day. Okay, is it going to be talking and getting overwhelmed and stressed with your friend? Absolutely not, of course. But again, think about everything you do. If you're in the musical at school, you don't just show up on opening night and like, well, I guess today's the day we're doing this, right? 1 minute before showtime, well, let's curtains going, let's do this, right? If you play sports, you don't just show up. There's a reason your coaches have you get there an hour early to run around a little bit, get a little warmed up. This test is infinitely more important than any single show or performance, any single sporting event, any single club activity. And it just is what it is, right? For better, for worse, that's just a true statement right now as it applies to college admissions, scholarship opportunities, all that stuff. So let's take it, right? Let's take it as seriously as we can with these warm-ups, just doing a few practice problems, getting ourselves in the right mindset so that all those jitters, all the thoughts about, trying to get ready for the exam, those go out the door during the practice while you're standing in line rather than having to do it, right before you start the exam. Or better yet, I can't tell you how often we see students who will miss on our practice test. They'll miss 4 or 5 of the first 20 questions, and then they get 40 questions right in a row on the ACT English test. What that tells me is that on the first 4 to 5 that they miss, right in the first 20, their brain just wasn't thinking about ACT English. And those are just sacrificed questions. At high levels of this test, if you're trying to get 700 plus on the SAT, or if you're trying to get over a 30 on the ACT, simple mistakes like that or the lack of focus early in the test just can really kill you because 4 or 5 questions at those high levels are really, really important. Okay, so take again another 2 or 3 minutes. If you finish with one lesson, right, don't just stop. If you finish with a punctuation lesson, just go back and now do verb tense or subject-verb agreement or whatever it might be. Okay, so again, we're going to give you guys another 3 minutes or so. I'm very adamant about you guys doing this, so please make sure that you do it now. be doing some practice problems. I'll give you guys to the top of the hour, 3 minutes, and then we'll get started with the actual exam. Okay, again, for anybody that's just joining us, we're about to start the practice test. But we're doing some warm-up problems first. Another minute or so, guys. Keep working at it. You guys have answered a few questions already. Great. Keep it up. Don't stop answering questions just because you get done. Keep going. You're doing great. And then when you guys are done with this warm-up, when you feel comfortable, like, okay, I know what I'm about to do, this doesn't change for the real test day. I want you to be doing these things while you're standing in line. There's a reason we're doing it in practice, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about that as we get started with this exam. It's very important that we try to simulate this test as closely to the real thing as we possibly can. Okay? I promise you on real test day, you will appreciate simulating a practice test very closely, because then when you get to the real test, not only are you very familiar with the environment, but in some ways you're actually more focused because you're not worried about the environment being at a different, right, being in a focused setting. You're not worried about that, and because there's no distractions like your brother or your sister yelling in the background, right, or your mom and dad yelling, right, at your brother and sister in the background, okay, it's everybody's there for the same reason that day, and so you can actually be more focused on test day if you take this simulation, right, thinking about how the testing environment is going to work as closely, as seriously as possible. All right, guys, so with that in mind, let's get started here with the real test. Okay, like I said, in terms of simulating this test as closely to the real thing as possible, we have created proctoring videos that are identical to what you'll experience in the real environment. I'm going to post those, and I really want everybody to click on those and follow the video all the way through. It comes with timers on the screen. It tells you when you should take breaks. Remember that in the real test, you don't just get up and go to the bathroom in the middle of a section. Part of it is overcoming the stress of having to go to the bathroom or feeling overwhelmed. So if you follow this video all the way through, once I post it, if you click on it and you follow it all the way through, it'll tell you when you can take breaks. It will show you timers on the screen. Then that will allow you to simulate the real environment as closely to the real thing as possible. If you can go through it all without stopping the video to get up to go to the bathroom in the middle of a section, whatever, then that's the real stress and the real focus that you'll feel on the real exam. Okay, so I want you guys to try to simulate it as much as possible. So start with ACT test takers. SAT test takers, just hold tight for a second. ACT test takers. Right now I'm going to post our normal timing, okay, normal timing, not accommodations, not extended timing, the normal timing proctoring video. What I want all of our ACT test takers to do, I want you to mute this video, live stream in just a second, then click on the link I'm about to post, and that will pull up the proctoring video. Watch the proctoring video all the way through. It comes, again, complete with instructions. I'm going to stay online for the next hour or so to make sure that while you guys get started, nobody has any questions, and then I'll sign off because I'll know that the video is working. Okay, but if you have any questions, I want you to mute me, put me up in a corner in another window so that if you do have questions, you don't have to scramble to come find me and try to find this video again. You guys just have it right there. So again, you're going to mute me, you're going to start the proctoring video, and that should take you all the way through the exam. So for all ACT test takers, can you guys give me a thumbs up if that makes sense? I'm going to post the normal timing video for ACT test takers, then I'm going to post the extended accommodations timing video, which does the exact same thing. It just has the timers are a little bit different. Okay, but please make sure that you guys are all ready to go with that. Okay, so ACT test takers, Give me a thumbs up if you guys are ready to go, and then I'll post the normal timing video for the ACT, and then I'll post the extended timing. SAT test takers, hold tight. The instructions will be the same, SAT test takers. Just a second. Okay, guys, looks like everybody's ready to go. So again, ACT test takers, here's the normal proctoring video for the ACT exam for normal timing. For all normal timing ACT test takers, go ahead and click that link. Okay, click that link. Mute this video, put me up in the corner in case you have questions over the next hour before I sign off. And then that video should lead you all the way through the test. Okay, that video should lead you all the way through the test. For ACT test takers with extended timing, okay, here's the extended timing video for ACT test takers, and we'll have the same one for SAT test takers in just a second. Okay, if you have extended timing for the ACT, you guys can click this video link. All of the same instructions apply. Okay, if you have extended timing for the ACT, for all ACT test takers, good luck. Mute this video, put me up in a live stream somewhere in the corner in case you do have questions over the next hour. Okay, and good luck. You guys are going to crush it. Great job today, guys. Way to wake up on a Saturday morning to take this practice test. I know it's not the first thing you guys want to do, but you're doing such a great job. Keep it up. So ACT test takers are off. Can everybody who's taking the SAT give me a thumbs up? Or say ready to go. SAT test takers say ready to go if you guys are ready to take the SAT exam. The same explanation here applies. If you're taking the SAT exam, okay, the SAT exam. Okay, guys, if you're taking the SAT Proctored the test today, I'm going to post the normal timing video. If you don't have accommodations timing, if it's normal timing, you guys are going to see that come up in the screen in the chat in just a second. Please click that link, mute me, mute this video, put me up in the corner somewhere, again, in case you have any questions for me. Okay, and then start the SAT proctoring video, and then if you have any questions over the next hour, you guys should be good to go. Okay, so here's the SAT proctoring video with normal time. Okay, so you guys can click that link. Good luck, SAT test takers, normal timing SAT test takers. You guys are going to do so well, I know it. Okay, if you have extended timing for the SAT, I'm going to do the same thing here. Video is going to be posted. And then the same rules apply, same instructions apply for if you have extended timing. Mute this video, put me up in the corner, and then you guys can get started with with this video as well. Okay. All right, guys. So everybody should be off and running. You guys are going to do great. Again, I'm going to stay on for the next hour or so while you guys get started, just to make sure there aren't any questions, that you guys can get through most of the first section, on your own. And you guys are going to crush it. So if you guys are taking the test today, great job. Way to wake up on a Saturday morning. Good luck. And you guys are going to do so well. Guys, again, for those that are staying on, I'm going to stay on for the next hour. I'll answer any questions you guys have if you have any questions. And I'll be happy to answer those in the chat while we're waiting. And then if anybody's taking the test today and has any general questions or proctoring questions, you guys can ask those in the chat as well, as we just discussed. All right, guys, otherwise, good luck. And, yeah, we'll see you guys soon. All right, guys. So, like I said, we'll get done with this at the top of the hour. A lot of great questions again. I'm signing off now. Unfortunately, I have to run. But if you're taking the practice test, you should have instructions either in your classroom group or from your high school administrators as to how you can grade the test. We provided those advanced score reports for you, so look out for that email or look out for that post. Otherwise, guys, keep it up. It doesn't look like anybody has any questions. That's for those that are taking the test today. So you guys are doing such a great job. I can't tell you how much I appreciate being here on a Saturday and continuing to work as hard as you guys have. I just know that it's going to pay off in the end. You guys just got to keep it up, okay? Make the decision, as I just told Joseph in the chat. Make the decision. Once you know what you have to do, make the decision to get it done, right? I know that seems very vague and more general, but you can do it. I know you can do it. We'll continue to provide you guys with resources to make sure that happens. But otherwise, guys, I hope you have a great rest of your day. I hope you have a great weekend. For those that are in our classroom programs, I'll see you guys tomorrow for class, for the lessons. But otherwise, guys, keep it up. You guys are doing a great job. Have a great weekend. Have a great rest of your week. And we'll see you guys for the next live stream. Okay? Great job today, guys.